Hey guys, welcome back to the Hilton True Wealth podcast. I'm Mark Miller, manager of the Hilton Family Office, and today we'll be discussing the motivation myth in life and building wealth. So the key takeaway today is the people who achieve extraordinary results are not necessarily more motivated than anybody else. They've simply learned how to succeed when motivation is absent, and we'll dive deep into this. Have you ever watched a motivational video or maybe come out of a movie that motivated you a lot? You felt unstoppable, promised yourself this time it's going to be different. This time I'm going to do what I need to do and want to do, and then found yourself back into those old habits, say the next day or even 2 weeks later. So why does this happen? Well, let me give you a few relatable examples. First of all, it tends to happen maybe it's happened to you, like the January gym membership, budgeting attempts, starting a side hustle or another business, reading more books this year or this week, launching a business, saving for retirement. Any of these sound familiar? So here's the big question. If motivation is the key to success, why do so many highly motivated people fail to follow through? So today we're going to dive in to discuss why motivation often just disappears over a little bit of time, why that's completely normal, by the way. Last I checked, we're all human, right? So we need to give ourselves a little break on this. But what successful people do differently than maybe people that aren't getting the things they want out of life. How to build permanent momentum in your life. I'm going to give you tips and strategies on that, and why wealth creation has almost nothing at all to do with motivation. So by the end of this episode, I want you to stop chasing motivation like you're probably doing every day and start building in a way that's much more powerful and that's going to automatically give motivation, that's going to automatically put motivation into your life permanently. So here's the problem with motivation. Here's what most people believe. Success creates confidence, motivation creates action, and feeling inspired creates results. People say things like, oh, I need to get more motivated. Oh, I need more discipline. I don't have enough discipline to get this done or that done. I'm waiting until I'm ready. So we've heard that before. Like in the business world, this happens a lot to folks that start a business. I've got to get all my ducks in a row. Well, then 4 years later, their ducks are still not in a row because they're waiting for everything to be perfect before they take action. So a little bit of a reality check. When was the last time you felt motivated to pay your bills? How about file your taxes? So when was the last time you couldn't wait to clean out that garage, that project you've been putting off maybe around the house? Most responsibilities that you have, because we'd probably agree it's kind of important to pay your bill, right? So to pay your bills so that they don't turn the water off or the gas in your home, right? So most responsibilities are things that have to be completed, and they're commitments to you. So you figure out a way to get those things done, even though you're not, quote, motivated to do it. And that's not because they're generally exciting. It's just that you do them. So here's the thing, and this is the challenge. Motivation is very emotional, and it depends on maybe the proper amount of sleep, the stress that you're under, energy levels that you have, your mood, environment, circumstances. The list can go on of what drives motivation. So that means, in essence, that motivation is really naturally unstable. Imagine managing your investments based on daily emotions. So Monday I'm optimistic. Tuesday, I'm kind of nervous. Wednesday, I'm excited. Thursday, I'm scared. Friday, I'm a little discouraged today. It's 5 days later. So if your investment strategy changed every day based on your feelings, you'd be broke and you would never build any substantial wealth. The same principle applies to personal growth. The biggest mistake that people make is expecting motivation to remain constant and always be there to keep them consistently doing the things they need to do. So let me explain why motivation always fades and it always fails. Humans are naturally attracted to, and I see this all the time with people I work to, the business owners I work with especially, that we're always attracted to building goals or new opportunities or challenges. That's what it kind of means to be human. We generally all have our passions, our hobbies, the things that we want to do and that really compel us to go forward, right? So, but here's the thing. In the beginning, we get excited about those things and the excitement is just there. But the middle part becomes kind of boring, right? And then the end requires this just kind of undaunting persistence. So what do most people do that don't get good results? They just quit and then move on to something else. Think about these things: starting a workout plan, beginning a diet, opening a business, learning more about investing. The first week feels very exciting and wow, this is a great idea and I'm really motivated about this. Week 3 feels quite a bit different. That's the valley, in essence, the valley of boring. You know, that thing that I like to talk about here is a roller coaster. So, by the way, I have this kind of mixed relationship with roller coasters. I've had a lot of fun on roller coasters, and I haven't had much fun on roller coasters, especially the really, really high ones. But when you think about it, though, when you stand in line for the roller coaster, you're preparing yourself for what's coming up. Those ups and downs, right? That's just like life is. So you're going to have those emotional swings, right? But what we find is often people, first of all, they don't even bother to stand in line because they know what's going to happen because it happened last time. They're just going to get going and then they're going to quit, so they just don't do it at all. But most people quit during kind of the repetition times when they're seeing slow progress, lack of immediate results. Let me give you a financial example. Someone starts investing. So month number 1, they have $500 invested. By 2, they have $1,000. Month 6, they're $3,000 invested. Maybe they have $3,100 in month 6. So nothing feels, that's the key, life-changing. But years later, when it comes to investing, compound growth begins accelerating, progress becomes totally visible, and the results happen in that waiting time, in that long period of time. So the problem isn't lack of ability or even lack of motivation to start off with and all that. The problem is surviving that boring phase, that phase that requires persistence. So here's a really powerful question. Can you stay committed long enough for the results to show up? Now, listen to that again. Can you stay committed long enough for the results to show up? Why is that such an important statement? Because let's just give a business example. Starting a business. When you start a business, people go into the business, they expect results and kind of big results within a year or so. And if they don't have any results within a year, and they don't have the results even with, and they did a long-term plan even, they may have even planned out 5 or 10 years, but in that first year they don't get results, they just quit because it's boring. You got to do those things on a daily basis that helps you build that solid business, right? So the problem with this is that most good things in life and most successes in life come over time. That's just it's kind of natural law. It's just the way that it works. In other words, you don't set out to start a business and in the first 2 weeks expect to be making this massive cash flow. Really, on the business front, I always say you should look at least 3 years, and 3 years of that is going to be persistence and kind of technically a grind. Let me give you an example too of we actually do a lot of business in the film industry. And one of our stars that works in a lot of our businesses, his name is Mark Wahlberg. I'm sure you've heard of him. Mark is famous for like his daily habits that he does. He's up at 3:34 in the morning. He's doing a couple workouts, has this huge morning routine and all that. He's in bed at, 9:30 at night. Now, most people would look at that and they would say, oh my gosh, that's a grind. I mean, and this is like every day. And think about, we were just talking about this earlier, that it's not all, flowers, roses, all that kind of stuff. Being an actor, there's a lot of times when it's very difficult and you're put in difficult situations where you have to act, where you have to perform and all of that. Those can be long, exhausting days. But yet he does that day after day, and it's proven every year he gets a little more successful. Bigger movies, improves his wealth, all of that. So he's famous for actually saying, there's other people that have said this, but he said it in interviews, hey, I embrace the grind. And I know that sounds really weird, but it's about kind of like daily habits, high performance daily habits that Mark has, that he's able to then turn those into habitual things to where it's just so rote, and he's trained his mind to where if he doesn't do one of those things, he misses it. So he's really embracing that grind as he's going through that. And then over time, he's gotten massive results. Now, you look at some other people that are in the film business that really don't work that hard and don't grind that hard and don't have a real passion for the things that they're doing. And maybe they just have, they may even, some are even famous, but they're not really growing in their career. They're not getting anywhere. They may have a good, they get good jobs, so to speak, but they're not passionate about what they do and all of that. So I think that's a good example of how important it is. And by the way, if you're finding value in what I'm talking about today, please like us and subscribe so you never miss an episode. So let's talk a little bit about why identity is massively stronger than relying on your motivation. So identity drives behavior so much more, and identity comes in many different ways. I believe identity starts with purpose. It starts with passion. It starts with a why. Why am I doing the things I'm doing? When it comes to any aspect of your life, whether it's health, whether it's your business, whether it's your spiritual life, there needs to be that why. What is the purpose here? Why am I doing this? Most people make the mistake on focusing on outcomes, and that's it. Examples. I want to lose 40 pounds. I want to save $50,000. Make six figures, retire early, all of these. Nothing the matter with these as goals, but successful people focus on the identity behind those goals. What is their personal identity? Why do you want to lose 20 pounds? Why is it important that you retire early? What are those things that you're passionate about and that really ignite something in you? Here's some identity examples. Instead of, I want to save money, so how about I'm a wealth builder? Instead of I want to work out, say to yourself, I am someone who takes care of my health. Why does this matter? Why is it so important? Every action becomes a vote that types into the person, into your brain of the person that you're becoming. So let me explain this a little further. So first of all, we all know, if we ask, hey, who do you know best? Most people will say, oh, my friend Julie or John or whatever, or my family members, my brother, my sister, my mother, my father. That's who I know best. Well, you know who you actually know best? It's you. because there's constantly things going on in your mind and you're having conversations with yourself more than anybody else. So as human beings, and I've talked about this in some other podcasts, we tend to focus on the negatives. This is very important in building wealth too. We focus too much on the negatives. So in our minds, all we're doing is saying, and this is why we have to be very mindful of the things that we're saying to ourselves in our minds. A lot of it comes from our childhood or whatever, and we're saying so many negative things to ourselves on a daily basis that it is getting in the way of what we truly can become. So think of that. If you, and you've heard about, positive thinking, all of that, it's just this nebulous idea and kind of goofy, and you hear that all the time. But the reality is positive thinking and positive talk to yourself is extremely vital to overpower those negative things that are happening in your mind. I can't do that because this happened in the past, or that happened in the past, or I can't do a project in the future because I've tried that project before, it failed, it won't go this time, or I'm not a good person, I did this wrong. All of these things are just things going on in our mind that, when you think about it, are ridiculous. They don't make any sense. That when reality is we're in the present and we're designing the future, but yet we're letting these things from our past constantly go over in our minds over and over again, and it's just making us smaller and smaller and smaller. So I think it's very important that we replace, when we start thinking negative thoughts, that we immediately try to replace those with positive thoughts, like I had just mentioned. So let's talk about some of these things that apply actually a true wealth application. Financial identities. Poor identity, I'm bad with money. I can't handle money, so I'm just not going to do anything. Middle identity would be, I'm trying to get better with money. That's definitely helpful. But the strong identity and the thing to say to yourself is, I manage money and build wealth responsibly. So ask yourself now, what financial identity are you reinforcing to yourself every day? That I'm always going to not have a lot of money. I'm not going to be able to build wealth. I'm not going to be able to invest properly. There's a lot of things you can be saying to yourself around money because it's a complex issue. So here's a personal kind of a reflection exercise that I want you to do for yourself. So I am the type of person who, just write that down on a piece of paper. I am the type of person who, examples, eats well, works out regularly, invests consistently, thinks long term and not short term, avoids non-working type of debt, makes thoughtful financial decisions. Those are just some examples. You may have several things in your life you want to do. And I'm going to talk about, by the way, doing this in bite-sized chunks. You don't want to go out and immediately say, and this is a mistake that people make, is say, hey, I want to get healthy, so I'm going to eat well, I'm going to work out 5 times a week, I'm going to da-da-da-da-da-da, and then they overload themselves. And I'll talk about how to kind of get out of that trap. So really important to understand, not just in building wealth, but systems beat motivation every time in all of life. This is the secret, really, to high performers, period. Successful people don't rely on how they feel every day. They don't rely on their motivation. They rely on systems. Here's the definition of a system. A system is a process that you put in place that works whether you feel like it or not. Here are some examples. Automatic investing. We all have bank accounts that allow you to pull money out. You can pull 10% in savings aside, no problem, every month. Once you do that for a while, you'll never miss it. Automatic savings. You can do that in the same way for investing and savings. Scheduled workouts. Maybe get a workout buddy that you have to be there on time to work out. Weekly meal preps. If you can't eat properly, Find somebody locally or someone in your sphere of influence that maybe knows someone that's can come in and help you put meals together, or you put your own meals together every Sunday or whatever. Weekly planning sessions. All of these things are the types of things you can do that put systems in place and processes in place. Let me give you a wealth example. Person A waits until they're motivated to save, or waits till they have a bigger paycheck to save. Big mistake. Person B automatically does this via their bank accounts. They save monthly automatically. Who's going to win that game? Who's going to win the wealth game? Not the more motivated person, the person who has the better system, because eventually the motivation is going to break down. Again, being human. Why automation works. It eliminates decision fatigue, rather than having that, a little person in your mind saying, well, I can't do that because of this and that and all of that. If you have a system in place, then the system automatically comes in and goes, oh, no, I've already put that system in place, and it has to happen in the system or the process. It also removes emotional interference, that we don't have these just massive emotional swings on a daily basis, and creates consistency in what you do on a daily basis. So here's some true wealth framework on this. 3 systems everybody that's listening, watching me today, needs to learn and needs to do. System number 1, pay yourself first. Before spending any expenses or anything, invest, save, automatically build wealth. System number 2, weekly wealth meeting. 15 minutes. That's all it takes a week. Check out review your spending, your investments for that week, your goals. How's your progress going? System number 3, monthly improvement goal. Choose one area. You want to budget maybe via your savings. Okay. You don't necessarily have to do, in-depth budgeting. I talk about that, and I will in future podcasts too. Debt reduction, investing, income growth. What's the focus maybe for that particular month? Focus deeply for that 1 month. And don't worry about doing all 4 or 5 or 10 of these things related. Just one thing for that month. We'll talk about that at a little more in a few minutes. So here's a question for you. What area of your life currently depends too much on you being motivated? That's a really good question. Write that down. With the other homework I gave you earlier, write that down too. What depends too much on motivation? And then what you need to do, hey, what systems can I put in place? I really want to do that thing. Systems can I put in place to replace that motivation? So the other thing, and I kind of jumped ahead a little bit because I talked about Mark Wahlberg, but falling in love with the process is extremely important. This is the little hidden secret of high performers. Most people become obsessed with the outcomes, and high performers generally, they still have those outcomes, but they're not obsessed with that. Examples are that net worth, that number on a page, income, retirement, promotions, they're obsessed with that. But outcomes are delayed and they're not seen daily. Okay, so processes are available daily. So then daily you can replace those, put those processes in. So the hidden secret is then the outcomes, those longer term outcomes, will automatically happen because of that. So what's the wealth connection here? And by the way, in those the processes, falling in love with the processes, I just wanted to mention part of the love of processes can be learning, growing, improving, practicing, becoming better. Now, athletes and Mark Wahlberg will call that a grind, but ultimately that's what you're doing. So you fall in love with that because you're learning, growing, improving, and you're constantly doing things to get better at that. So back to the wealth connection here. Investors who succeed often enjoy, say, reading market insights, studying different businesses, watching podcasts of business owners or extremely wealthy people talk about how they became wealthy, learning financial principles, watching your long-term progress and getting some, quote, motivation from that. That's not, I don't mean to be contradicting myself, but motivation there can be long-term motivation. What I'm talking about primarily is short-term motivation, because when you start seeing results, then it puts you in a place where you get more and more, you like the process and fall in love with the process more. So let's talk about the compounding effect here. Small actions repeated, they call this stacking. So when you do small actions and you get better at those and you make those a habit, that's called stacking, and they start to stack on each other and provide more and more better results and outcome as time goes on. Daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, all of it then eventually becomes extraordinary. So then you're not like everyone else or the average person that is just going from emotion to emotion and trying to rely on motivation, short-term motivation, to get them what they want. So here's some examples. Warren Buffett is famous for reading every day. So not only does he read those investment reports and everything, but he generally reads something very motivational, spiritual, something like that every single day, and that's part of his daily habits. Entrepreneurs that put in place daily habits, both in their personal life and their business life, to make sure that they're extremely productive, highly productive. Athletes that are embracing training that I mentioned earlier, that they really are. We always see the athletes and we see, oh my gosh, how can they put all that work in? How can they get up at 3:30 or 4 in the morning and, have 2-a-days, 4-a-days, constant, because they're embracing that and they have these long-term outcomes in their head. Olympic athletes are a perfect example of that. So the champions don't just love winning, they learn to love the practice and the grind of it. So kind of getting close to the end here, the permanent motivation formula. And here's what I want you to embrace. Motivation is helpful, can be powerful, but it's temporary. Short-term motivation is very temporary. Identity is much more stable, sustainable. It's long-lasting over a lifetime and will give you better results. So by putting systems together, they're extremely reliable, repeatable, scalable to basically give you those results that you want long term. So here's the formula. Purpose that I mentioned earlier, my why, my purpose, why do I have this goal or what am I doing this for? Plus identity, plus systems, plus consistency in those systems will automatically lead to long-term success. And that consistency is important because remember earlier I talked about you have to give success time to come along. It doesn't come overnight and it takes time. So bottom line is here, it's not about motivation equals success. So here's a final challenge to you. I want to challenge you to complete these actions, a little bit of homework this week. Write down, like I mentioned earlier, I am the type of person who, and you might want to go back and if you want to rewind this podcast or this video, you can go back and get some ideas on that. Action number 2 is create one automatic, maybe financial system. An example, automatic investing, automatic saving, automatic debt payments. And action number 3 is commit to one habit for 30 days. Not perfection. This isn't about perfection. This is about consistency. And here's a really cool thing. I go back to stacking. If you can commit to one small habit a month, just if it's, once a day, you're going to have a larger meal that has a protein intake. Once a day. Go eat normally like you do the rest of the day, but once a day do that and do it for 30 days. At the end of 30 days, You've just installed that habit. Now, if you do this once a month, get this, in 1 year, you've just installed 12 habits into your life, 12 very positive habits that could change your life forever. Okay. So think of it that way. Just make small changes, and then you'll find, and do those consistently and put them into your routines, all of that, and you'll find great results long term. So motivation, just in closing, I'm just going to say motivation, it will come and go. Some days you'll feel unstoppable. Other days you'll feel discouraged, and that's normal. Okay. Again, not discouraging anyone in that way, because we are human. But the people who build true wealth in their lives, and true wealth, I'm encompassing, it's the name of our podcast, I'm encompassing many areas of your life, not just a pile of money. Okay. Not just money wealth, but true wealth. They achieve their goals and they create extraordinary lives. They're not ones who stay motivated forever. They don't. They're the ones who keep moving forward after motivation leaves. That brings us to the end of today's episode of Hilton True Wealth. If you want to learn more about topics relating to building your wealth, tax planning, cutting-edge tech, and family office services, we're here to help. Be sure to follow us wherever you get your podcasts so you'll never miss an episode, and give us a like or a review. And if you're curious to learn more about your wealth, tune in every Tuesday for new insights and special guests. If you found value in what you heard today, share it with someone who might benefit too. For more insights, resources, and to get a free copy of our book, Hilton Wealth, How to Invest Like an American Dynasty, visit us at hiltonwealth.com. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep building your true wealth.